There comes a moment in every man's life when the weight in his chest becomes heavier than the weight on his shoulders. When the exhaustion isn't just physical, it's spiritual. When you wake up tired, go to bed tired, and somehow feel even more drained in the moments where nothing is happening at all. You know that moment. You've been living inside it. It's that slow collapse that doesn't make noise. The kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from running, but from standing still for too long while pretending you're okay. The kind of weakness you don't admit, because admitting it feels like failure. So you keep forcing yourself. You keep pushing. You keep telling yourself, I can handle it. I need to handle it. No one else will. But deep down, when it's quiet, you know the truth. You are at the end of yourself. And maybe the part that scares you the most is this. You don't know how much longer you can keep going. You've been carrying responsibilities that feel impossible. You've been fighting battles no one sees. You've been trying to stay strong for people who don't even realize you're breaking. You've been holding yourself together with the last threads of your willpower. And at some point, you whisper to God, or maybe to the ceiling in the dark, why am I so tired? Why do I feel like this? Why can't I just be stronger? But what if the real question isn't, why am I weak? What if the real question is, why am I trying so hard to be strong without God? Because exhaustion is not always a sign that something is wrong with you. Sometimes exhaustion is the voice of God telling you, you're carrying what I never asked you to carry. Isaiah 40 speaks directly into this kind of collapse, not the loud collapse, the dramatic breakdown, but the quiet one. The one that happens inside before anyone notices, the one that looks like functioning on the outside but dying on the inside. The one where you are still showing up, but without the strength to actually be present. The one where your body keeps moving, but your soul has stopped. This chapter is not for the proud. It's not for the self-sufficient. It's not for the people who want God as an accessory to their strength. Isaiah 40 is a message to the broken, the weary, the drained, the defeated, the ones who have finally reached the limit of what human strength can accomplish. It is God looking into the eyes of a man who is pretending to be strong and asking, why are you doing this alone? It is God addressing the people who believe they have failed because they feel tired. And he says the opposite. Your weakness is not failure. Your exhaustion is not shame. Your limits are not sin. Your weakness is simply the revelation that you are human, and he is God. The most dangerous lie the modern believer faces is the belief that strength must come from within. This world tells you to push harder, grind more, rise and hustle, show no weakness, hide your pain, be your own hero. But God says something completely different. Those who wait on me will renew their strength. Meaning this, your strength was never meant to come from you. Let that sink in. Let it confront you. Let it break the illusion. You cannot keep pretending you were designed to be your own source of power. If you try to breathe through your own strength, you will suffocate. If you try to live off your own energy, you will collapse. If you try to save yourself, you will drown in the waters you were supposed to walk on. Your human strength was never meant to be the engine of your life. It was meant to be the steering wheel, but the power was always supposed to come from God. This is why you're exhausted, not because you are weak, but because you have been acting like you're God. And God is gently, or maybe not so gently anymore, reminding you, you are not me. You were never meant to be. Your heart is tired, because it wasn't designed to carry this much fear. Your mind is tired because it wasn't designed to store this much pressure. Your spirit is tired because it wasn't designed to run without its creator. You want to know the truth? The truth no preacher wants to say out loud because it sounds too confrontational? Here it is. You are exhausted because you trusted your strength more than God's. And before you feel judged, understand this. We all do this. Every one of us. We step into seasons believing we can handle it. We try to take control. We try to fix everything. We try to be strong enough, wise enough, capable enough. Then suddenly, everything starts to collapse. The weight becomes unbearable. The pressure becomes overwhelming. The strength runs out, and we think, I failed. I wasn't strong enough. But God whispers, no, you were never meant to do this alone. Isaiah 40 is God dismantling the myth of human strength. He looks at nations, kings, empires, and he calls them dust. He looks at man's greatest efforts, and he calls them nothing. He looks at human strength, and he says it fades like grass. But then he speaks into the weakness of his people and says, but those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. Not those who fight harder, not those who ignore their pain, not those who pretend they are strong, not those who trust in their achievements, their discipline, their reputation, but those who you wait. And waiting is not passive. Waiting is surrender. Waiting is trust. Waiting is the refusal to run ahead of God. Waiting is the confession. Lord, I don't have enough, and I'm done pretending I do. That moment, that surrender, is where the miracle begins. Where human strength ends, divine strength begins. Let me tell you something important before we move deeper into this chapter. If this message is speaking to you, don't let it pass through you like a nice thought. Hold it. Sit with it. And if you want more messages that confront and rebuild you through Scripture, make sure you subscribe and stay close, because we're going to walk through the entire Bible like this, one chapter at a time, until your faith becomes unshakable again. But now, stay with me, because we've only scratched the surface. There is a brutal truth that every believer eventually has to face. Human strength always breaks. Not sometimes, not occasionally, not depending on personality, discipline, or upbringing. Always. The strongest men fall. The most disciplined minds collapse. The emotionally intelligent still hit walls. The responsible, the hardworking, the dedicated, even they crumble. Because no one can live as if they are God and expect to survive. Isaiah 40 confronts the lie of self-sufficiency. It exposes the myth that your worth is measured by your endurance. It shatters the idea that real men never break. Listen carefully. You don't break because you are weak. You break because you are human. And humans were created to depend on God. When Isaiah wrote these words, Israel was exhausted. Not just from war, but from pretending everything was fine while their soul was dying. They were a nation trying to carry the weight of failure, regret, distance from God, fear of the future, and the shame of their past choices. It was too much. It crushed them. And what did God do? Did he shout at them? Did he condemn them? Did he tell them to man up and push harder? No. He said, comfort my people. Because God is not looking for stronger humans. He is looking for surrendered hearts. Your exhaustion is not a sign that God is disappointed in you. Your exhaustion is a sign that God is calling you back to Him, because strength that comes from you will always run out, but strength that comes from God never will. And maybe, just maybe, this exhaustion you're feeling right now is God's mercy pulling you back into His arms. There is a kind of exhaustion that feels invisible, the kind you carry quietly, the kind no one else sees. You can hide almost anything from the world. Your successes, your pain, your regrets, your doubts, your fears. You can function while breaking. You can smile while sinking. You can talk about blessings while you bleed internally, and people around you won't notice, not because they don't care, but because you've mastered the art of pretending. But there is one who sees through every mask, every forced smile, every "I'm fine," every breath you take just to survive another day. God sees the collapse you've been hiding. And Isaiah 40 makes this painfully, beautifully clear. God is not distant from your exhaustion. He is drawn to it. Let's go deeper. You were created by a God who knows how you're wired, how much pressure you can carry, and when your strength reaches its breaking point. He knows the thoughts you bury. He knows the fears you suppress. He knows the questions you're afraid to ask. He knows the nights you don't sleep and the mornings you wake up heavy, and he doesn't shame you for it. He doesn't call you weak. He doesn't call you dramatic. He doesn't say, "Come back when you're stronger." Isaiah 40 reveals that God actually steps closer when you are at the end of yourself. One of the most shocking parts of Isaiah 40 is how God begins speaking, "Comfort, comfort my people." Not "fix yourselves," not "stand up straight," not "try harder." He begins with comfort. Because God never starts healing you through pressure. He starts healing you through presence. Pain pushes people away, but it pulls God closer. You might think he's disappointed in you because you're not as strong as you pretend, but God isn't disappointed. He's compassionate. He's moved by your struggle. He sees where you're breaking, and he says, "I know." You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to justify why you feel overwhelmed. You don't have to give him reasons, excuses, or defenses. He simply sees the collapse you've been denying. Some of you have been praying, "God, give me more strength." But God has been whispering, "No, give me your burden." Because you don't need more strength. You need less weight. You don't need more endurance. You need surrender. You don't need to prove anything. You need to collapse into his hands and let him lift you. Israel thought God had abandoned them. They felt forgotten, overlooked, buried beneath consequences, circumstances, and the weight of their own mistakes. Isaiah 40 captures their cry. "My way is hidden from the Lord. My cause is disregarded by my God." They believed God didn't see their exhaustion, but God responds with divine clarity. "Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God." It's as if God is saying, "You think I don't see you. I see every breath you take." When you believe God has forgotten you, it's usually because your pain is louder than your perspective. And God answers your pain, not with denial, but with revelation. "I am not tired. I am not confused. I am not overwhelmed. I am not out of strength. I am not out of plans. I am not out of mercy. I am not out of you." You may feel forgotten by the world, but you have never been unseen by God. There is a collapse that happens in the soul long before the body follows. A man doesn't fall the moment he breaks. He falls the moment he stops telling the truth about how he feels. Let's be honest. You've been hiding your exhaustion. You've been minimizing your pain. You've been pretending your soul isn't cracking. You've been telling yourself that you just need to push through. But God sees the fracture lines. He sees where your heart is buckling under pressure. He sees the thoughts that keep circling your mind late at night. He sees the numbness that has settled over your spirit, and he isn't repelled by it. He draws near. He steps in. He speaks into the silence. "I see you. I know you. I understand your limits because I designed them." Yes, God designed your limits. Your exhaustion is not malfunction. It's a sign you're trying to live disconnected from the source. Human strength has an expiration date. Divine strength does not. Your collapse is not the end. It's the beginning of God's restoration. Most people think exhaustion is a sign that they need to try harder. But biblically, exhaustion is a sign that you need to come closer. The purpose of weariness is not to weaken you. It is to bring you back to the only one who can strengthen you. This is why the voice in Isaiah 40 cries out, "Prepare the way for the Lord." Why? Because when God comes near, strength rises again. Some of you have been distant from God without even realizing it. Not rebellious, not sinful, just tired, slowly drifting, slowly shutting down emotionally, slowly losing the fire you once had. And God is calling you back, not with judgment, but with comfort. He's not saying, "Why did you leave me?" He's saying, "Come back. You're carrying too much alone." Exhaustion is the whisper of God telling you your soul is far from home. Isaiah 40 makes this truth unavoidable. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Who receives God's strength? Not the proud, not the self-sufficient, not the ones who pretend. The weary, the weak, the ones who admit they're done. God is not asking you to be stronger. He's asking you to be honest, because the moment you confess, "I can't do this anymore," He answers, "Now I can." God cannot fill a cup that is still pretending it's full. He cannot rebuild a life that insists it's not broken. He cannot renew someone who won't slow down long enough to breathe in His presence. Strength comes when you stop fighting God and start depending on Him. Some of you believe your weakness disappoints God, but the truth is the opposite. Your weakness activates His compassion. Your collapse is not a failure in His eyes. It is the doorway through which His strength enters your life. God saw this moment long before you reached it. He saw the season you're living. He saw the decision that broke you. He saw the pressure that crushed you. He saw the expectations that drained you. He saw the battle that left you limping. He saw everything. And He's not ashamed of you. He's not frustrated with you. He's not walking away from you. He's walking towards you. The God who sees your collapse is the same God who lifts you with unfailing power. Before we move to the next chapter, I want to speak to your spirit. Not your ego, not your persona, not the version of you the world sees. If this message is piercing you, if something inside you is waking up, don't ignore it. Don't let it fade. Don't pretend this didn't touch something deep. And if you want to keep walking through scripture like this, in a way that confronts you and rebuilds you at the same time, stay close. Subscribe if you haven't yet. This journey is not meant to be walked alone. Now, let's move deeper into Isaiah 40, because the collapse you're living through is not the end. It is the moment before God begins to lift you. There is a point in every believer's journey where the battle stops being about the enemy and starts being about endurance. The hardest trial in your life is not always the war itself. Sometimes the hardest trial is the waiting. Waiting for clarity, waiting for healing, waiting for God to move, waiting for your heart to breathe again, waiting for the strength you lost somewhere along the way. You see, when you are exhausted, even waiting feels impossible. Waiting feels like failure. Waiting feels like passivity. Waiting feels like wasted time. Waiting feels like the world is moving without you while you drown beneath all the expectations you can no longer meet. But Isaiah 40 reveals something breathtaking. Waiting is not weakness. Waiting is the place where God performs the greatest exchange of your life. Waiting is where human strength ends, and divine strength begins. Waiting is where your self-sufficiency dies, and God's sufficiency is born. Waiting is where your pride breaks, and your humility becomes the soil where God plants new strength. Waiting is not idleness. Waiting is not stagnation. Waiting is not spiritual paralysis. Waiting is surrender. And surrender is the birthplace of renewal. Biblical waiting is not passive. It is not standing still. It is not saying, God, do everything while I sit here. Waiting is not laziness disguised as faith. Waiting is not spiritual inertia. Waiting is war. It is the war between your desire to control and your need to trust. It is the war between your timelines and God's sovereignty. It is the war between your fear of the unknown and your belief that God is good even when you can't see the outcome. Have you noticed we never grow impatient when we trust someone? But we grow violently impatient when we don't. Impatience reveals trust issues. Trust issues reveal distance from God. Distance from God reveals a heart trying to survive on its own strength. This is why Isaiah says, "Those who wait on the Lord." Because waiting is not about time. It's about relationship. You learn who God really is in the waiting. You see who you really are in the waiting. You discover the truth about your strength in the waiting. Waiting is the furnace that refines your faith. There is a divine principle hidden inside Isaiah 40 that most people miss. God does not add his strength on top of yours. He replaces it. This is the exchange. You don't get both. You don't get your strength and God's strength at the same time. God doesn't bless self-sufficiency. He replaces it, but he only replaces it when you let yours go. Some of you want God's strength, but refuse to stop relying on your own. You pray for renewal, but you continue carrying the burdens yourself. You ask God to restore you, but you refuse to stop trying to fix everything alone. You say you trust him, but your actions prove you trust your own ability more. God's strength can only fill the space where your strength has died. And that is why exhaustion is not your enemy. Exhaustion is your invitation. When God sees your strength fading, he doesn't criticize you. He prepares you for the exchange. But the exchange only happens when you stop pretending you have more strength left. Most people come to God asking for help. Few come asking for replacement. Isaiah 40 is not about God helping the strong. It's about God resurrecting the weak. When Isaiah says, he gives strength to the weary, he's not talking about your muscles. He's not talking about your adrenaline. He's not talking about generic motivation. He is talking about the place inside you that no one else sees. The place where your will is tired, your spirit is tired, your hope is tired. You know exactly what place I'm talking about. The place that no one else has access to. The place where your smile doesn't reach. The place where your thoughts get darker. The place where your motivation evaporates. The place where you don't feel like yourself anymore. God doesn't give strength to the version of you that performs. He gives strength to the version of you that collapses in secret. God meets you in the place where you stop pretending. That private collapse inside you, the one you've been ashamed of, is the exact place where God wants to pour his power. The exchange does not happen in the areas where you feel strong. The exchange happens in the areas where you feel completely unfit to continue. God's strength begins where your strength ends, not where it improves. Imagine trying to light a house with a dying candle. Imagine trying to cross an ocean with a leaking boat. Imagine trying to breathe underwater without oxygen. That is what it feels like to live with human strength. You weren't designed for it. Human strength is temporary. It cracks under pressure. It fractures under responsibility. It bleeds under emotional weight. It collapses under spiritual warfare. When God created humans, He didn't design them to run on self-sufficiency. He designed them to run on dependency on Him. The reason your strength breaks is because it was never the fuel you were supposed to live on. You can push yourself beyond your limits for a season. You can pretend you're fine for a while. You can sustain the illusion of stability until the moment comes when everything inside you crumbles. But that collapse is not punishment. It is exposure. It reveals the truth. And the truth is this: you were not built to be your own provider of strength. The sooner you accept this truth, the faster the exchange begins. Strength does not come to the one who hides. Strength comes to the one who confesses. God is not repelled by your weakness. He is drawn to it, but He is repelled by pride. Pride says, I can do this without God. I don't need help. I shouldn't be feeling this way. I can fix myself if I try harder. Humility says, I can't do this anymore. I need Him. I surrender. I don't want my strength. I want His. Honesty breaks the illusion. Humility opens the door. Surrender brings the exchange. Some of you have been praying for God to give you strength, while also praying He never takes away your independence, but you cannot have both. God's strength requires surrender. It requires letting go. It requires admitting your limits. This is why Scripture says, my power is made perfect in weakness. Not in performance, not in appearance, not in pretending, in weakness. When God renews your strength, you won't necessarily feel an emotional jolt, a burst of energy, or a sudden explosion of motivation. Sometimes renewal begins quietly. Sometimes it begins with peace, where there was panic. Sometimes it begins with clarity, where there was confusion. Sometimes it begins with stillness, where there was chaos. Sometimes it begins with hope, where there was numbness. God does not always rebuild your life by changing your situation. Often, He rebuilds your life by changing your spirit. He strengthens your foundation before He strengthens your hands. He restores your heart before He restores your circumstances. He renews your mind before He renews your environment. The exchange is not always visible at first, but once it begins, nothing stays the same. If this chapter is speaking to you and you're beginning to sense that God is inviting you into this exchange, stay with me. There is more. There is a depth to Isaiah 40 that many believers never step into, and I want you to walk through it with me. And if you haven't yet, consider subscribing. Not out of obligation, but because sometimes the strength we need is found in the reminders we receive. Reminders that bring us back to God's voice when life gets loud. There is a moment in every believer's life when divine strength doesn't just replace human strength. It elevates you, not emotionally, not motivationally, not through hype or adrenaline, but spiritually, quietly, powerfully, invisibly at first, and then unmistakably. It is the moment Isaiah describes when he says, "They will mount up with wings like eagles." This is not poetic fluff. This is not inspirational decoration. This is not ancient metaphor for feeling better. This is a spiritual reality, a transformation that changes how you move through life. And to understand it, we must confront one truth. God does not rebuild you to remain on the ground. He rebuilds you to rise. He rebuilds you to see from a higher perspective. He rebuilds you to walk above what once crushed you. He rebuilds you to move in a realm that human strength could never take you. But before God teaches you to rise, He teaches you to surrender. Before He teaches you to fly, He teaches you to collapse. Before He gives you wings, He takes away the weights you were never meant to carry. Before He lifts you, He empties you. Only the emptied can be lifted. Only the surrendered can be renewed. Only the weak can be strengthened. That is why the rising comes after the waiting, the breaking, the collapsing, the surrender. And now, in Isaiah 40, God reveals what happens next. He teaches you to rise again. One of the most misunderstood truths about eagles is this: they don't create the wind, they rise by surrendering to it. A storm that crushes every other bird becomes the platform of the eagle's ascent. The difference is not strength, it's posture, it's surrender, it's willingness to stretch the wings God designed instead of flapping in panic. And this is the secret. Eagles rise higher, not because they fight harder, but because they surrender to a greater strength. This is what God is teaching you through your exhaustion. Stop fighting the wind. Stop resisting what God is doing. Stop trying to produce your own strength. Stop flapping in fear. Stop burning yourself out in human effort. You were meant to stretch your wings. You were meant to trust the wind. You were meant to ascend through surrender. You are not rising because of your strength. You are rising because of God's. When Isaiah describes mounting up with wings like eagles, he is not talking about physical elevation. He is talking about spiritual elevation, about seeing life from God's vantage point, about lifting your eyes from your exhaustion and fixing them on the one who never grows tired. When you rise, you stop seeing your life from the ground. You stop seeing your problems from the viewpoint of fear. You stop interpreting your exhaustion through shame. You begin to see that your life is bigger than your current season, that your pain is part of a process, that God has not abandoned you, that the storm you feared is the storm that lifts you, that the weight you carried was never yours, that the collapse was not destruction, but reconstruction. Perspective is elevation. Elevation is strength. Strength is rebirth. This is why Isaiah says, "Lift up your eyes on high," because you cannot rise unless your eyes rise first. You've been looking down for too long. Down at your failures, down at your regrets, down at your fears, down at your exhaustion, down at the ruins of what didn't work, down at the weight on your shoulders, but your strength will never return until your eyes return to God, until you stop looking at yourself and start looking at Him, until you stop focusing on the battle and start focusing on the one who commands the battles. Your spirit rises when your gaze rises, because you cannot fly while staring at the ground. Strength does not return all at once. Hope does not explode like fireworks. Peace doesn't always hit you in an emotional wave. Sometimes the rising begins quietly, like dawn breaking slowly across a dark horizon. At first, you barely notice it. You wake up one morning and realize the heaviness is a little lighter. You walk through your day and notice the fear is a little quieter. You pray and realize your words feel a little more sincere. A tiny spark, so small you almost miss it. But it is the beginning of the rising. God rarely rebuilds you dramatically. He rebuilds you consistently. He rebuilds you one breath at a time, one perspective shift at a time, one surrendered moment at a time. Until suddenly, almost without noticing when it happened, you are stronger than the version of you that collapsed. This is why Isaiah does not describe the rising as an explosion. He describes it as mounting up with wings, a gradual, upward, steady ascent. God is not rushing the rising, He is perfecting it. When God renews your strength, He doesn't just restore your ability to survive, He restores your ability to overcome. There is a difference between coping and conquering. Coping is getting through the day. Conquering is rising above the things that once destroyed you. When God lifts you, you stop drowning in what used to suppress you. You stop folding under the pressure that once overwhelmed you. You stop living from crisis to crisis. You stop defining your identity by your exhaustion. Rising is not feeling better. Rising is becoming different. It's when the trauma loses its power, when the disappointment loses its sting, when the anxiety loses its voice, when the enemy loses his leverage, when life stops being something you endure and becomes something you rise through. And this rising is not pride. It is dependence. It is becoming the person God designed you to be long before exhaustion broke you. There is a moment in Isaiah 40 where everything shifts. It's not loud. It's not theatrical. It's not a sudden explosion of emotion. It is a moment of revelation, the kind that reaches deeper than motivation ever could, the kind of truth that doesn't touch the surface, but the spine, the soul, the core of who you are. It is the moment God speaks into humanity's deepest fear, the fear of not being enough. You've felt that fear. You've lived under its weight. You've let it judge you. You've let it whisper lies into your mind. You've let it shape your decisions and define your identity. But Isaiah 40 was written to confront that lie, to break it, to replace it with something unshakable. And here is the climax, the truth that confronts everything inside you. Those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. One sentence. But it is the hinge on which an exhausted life turns. One promise. But it is the difference between collapsing under pressure and rising above it. One revelation. But it rewrites the narrative of your entire season. Let's break this open slowly, reverently, like handling something sacred. This promise isn't for everyone. It isn't for the proud. It isn't for the self-sufficient. It isn't for the ones who rush ahead of God and then collapse asking why He wasn't following them. It is for one kind of person, the one who waits. But the word wait in Hebrew, kava, does not mean sitting still or being passive. It means to bind yourself to something, to become intertwined, to cling with expectation, to wrap your life around God like vines wrapping around a tree, to hold on to Him so deeply that your strength becomes inseparable from His. This is not waiting like sitting at a bus stop. This is waiting like a soldier on his knees with his hands trembling, refusing to move without the command of his king. This is the waiting that changes a man. This is the waiting that kills pride. This is the waiting that exposes dependency. This is the waiting that rebuilds your foundation. This is the waiting that prepares you for the rising. If you are exhausted right now, understand this. God is not calling you to do more. He is calling you to wait more. Wait differently. Wait expectantly. Wait dependently. Wait with surrender instead of anxiety. You've tried waiting with fear. Now God is teaching you to wait with faith. Wing shall renew their strength. The miracle word you've been missing. The word renew. In the original language does not mean refill. It does not mean recharge. It does not mean get your old strength back. It means to exchange. God does not give you more of your strength. He gives you His strength instead. This is the great mystery of Isaiah 40. Renewal is not restoration, it is replacement. A supernatural transaction, a divine exchange, your weakness for His strength. When God renews you, He doesn't polish your old strength. He gives you something you never had before, something unbreakable, something eternal, something born from Him, not from you. This is why people who have walked through the fire with God emerge different, not improved, but transformed. Their strength is no longer human. Their endurance is no longer forced. Their hope is no longer circumstantial. Their peace is no longer fragile. They carry something from heaven. This strength does not burn out. It does not crack. It does not collapse. It does not disappear the moment life becomes hard. This strength is not emotional. It is spiritual. Not manic, but grounded. Not based on energy, but anchored in eternity. This is the strength God is offering you. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. The rise you thought was impossible. This is the visual climax of the chapter, and maybe of your life. God does not renew your strength so you can go back to surviving. He renews it so you can rise. He renews it so you can ascend above. The fear that crushed you, the guilt that haunted you, the anxiety that drained you, the expectations that suffocated you, the regrets that chained you, the lies that broke you. He renews it so you can see from His perspective. He renews it so you can move where others remain stuck. He renews it so you can fly above storms instead of drowning beneath them. Eagles don't rise by fighting. They rise by surrender. They stretch their wings and trust the wind. This is what God is teaching you. You rise not because you're stronger, but because you are surrendered. Your wings are not your power. They are God's. Your elevation is not your accomplishment. It is His mercy lifting you. And once you rise, something changes in you. You stop begging for strength. You stop fearing collapse. You stop doubting your purpose. You stop questioning your worth, because the rising proves something you never believed before. You were never meant to live on the ground. You were meant to live lifted. They shall run and not grow weary. The endurance you couldn't produce. God does not only raise you, He sustains you. The promise doesn't end in the air, it continues on the ground. They shall run and not grow weary. Meaning, you will walk through seasons that used to break you, and you will not collapse. You will fight battles that once destroyed you, and you will not lose. You will face pressures that once overwhelmed you, and you will endure. Your steps will carry the strength of the one who walks with you. This is not human endurance. This is endurance that flows from the throne of God. You are not running alone. You are not walking alone. You are not fighting alone. You feel exhausted right now, but the God who never grows tired is about to run inside you. Your feet, His strength, your journey, His endurance, your weakness, His power. This is the exchange. This is the promise. This is the climax of Isaiah 40. They shall walk and not faint. Strength for the ordinary days. And here is the final miracle. God's greatest work is not always in the dramatic rise, but in the quiet consistency that follows. Flying is glorious, running is powerful, but walking is daily life. And God promises strength even there, especially there. Strength for ordinary days, strength for mundane responsibilities, strength for slow seasons, strength for quiet battles, strength for the prayers you repeat, strength for the nights nothing changes, strength for the mornings where you don't feel inspired, strength for the long obedience of faithfulness. Flying teaches you perspective, running teaches you endurance, but walking teaches you loyalty. And God is saying, I will be your strength in all three. Now you see it. Now you feel it. Now your spirit recognizes the truth it was starving for. Your collapse wasn't the end. It was the invitation. It was the doorway. It was the moment where human strength died and divine strength was born. Your exhaustion was not a sign that God left you. It was a sign that God was coming closer. Your weakness was not a failure. It was preparation. Your breaking was not destruction. It was transformation. Your limits were not shameful. They were sacred. Why? Because they led you back to Him. You were never meant to carry life alone. You were never meant to be your own source. You were never meant to stand without support. You were never meant to pretend you were unbreakable. You were meant to depend on Him. You were meant to draw strength from Him. You were meant to receive power from Him. You were meant to rise by Him. Your weakness did not ruin your story. It brought you back to the author, and now you are rising. Before you leave this video, stop, breathe. Let your spirit listen for a moment. God is calling you back to strength, not human strength, not performance strength, not the strength of pretending, but the strength that comes only through surrender. He is calling you to return, to rest, to wait, to trust, to let Him lift what you cannot carry, to let Him renew what you cannot restore, to let Him rebuild what you cannot fix. If this message spoke to you, don't ignore it. Don't dismiss it. Don't say, I'll deal with it later. This is God speaking to your exhaustion. This is God reclaiming your heart. And if this journey through Isaiah 40 has awakened something inside you, if you want to keep walking through Scripture in this raw, cinematic, honest way, stay close. Subscribe. Not as a gesture to a channel, but as a commitment to your own spiritual rebuilding. And if God touched you today, comment something simple but powerful. Lord, renew my strength. Let that be your declaration. Let it be your surrender. Let it be the beginning of the exchange. Because your weakness is not the end. It is the place where God begins.